and I'm sure you have some strong opinions on sort of how the situation was handled. So, given what happened, the fact that you were ignored, you were given the runaround, you were the victim of an assault, your car was vandalized, the police basically, it almost seems like they committed a crime on top of the crime you already was done to you. How do you feel about the situation?
To be quite honest, I'm downright pissed off about the way that it was handled. I generally try to keep my cool. Doesn't always happen the best way, but I found myself more angry dealing with the police than I think I've ever been, to the point where I was actually calm dealing with them when I was boiling over, so to speak.
I know in the interview you kind of said that you heard before, some people who always say, "Oh, the police are horrible. They're pigs. They don't know what they're doing. They're just out to make money," and you didn't believe that before. Has that opinion changed?
Actually, yeah, it has, because I used to be one of the advocates for the police. They would hang around and be like, "Oh, you guys, come on! I mean, really, they're not just out there to give you speeding tickets, and they're not there to ruin your fun." I believe the police are actually there to help people out. They actually have a job and a purpose in life. I guess I was naive at the time to think that was true, but now this incident has totally spun me the 180 and said they're no better than over-glorified meter maids doing the job of issuing traffic tickets, and anything else that's outside of that is too much work for them.
Now, of course, I have played devil's advocate here a little bit. And I, of course, talked with the police, and interesting enough, I did get a response of sorts from the Coquitlam RCMP on this issue, which is going to be revealed on tomorrow's website. But for those listening tonight, I did get an email from the RCMP, and there wasn't much to it. Actually, Brenda, I can't pronounce her last name properly, so I'm not even going to try. Her name is Brenda. She's the media liaison for the Coquitlam RCMP, and she told me that she would get back to me next week about sort of what's happened here. So we're waiting to hear back what their explanation is from their side, and apparently they've given me the runaround too, and I'm going to have to...
Yeah, I wouldn't expect to get a call back or anything.
Well, I hope to keep at them and get some sort of response. But in playing the devil's advocate, like I said, there are a lot of things the police have to deal with. Reading a newspaper, and even this last week, I mean, if you take the Vancouver police, for example, there was a horrific shooting this week. And just earlier tonight, actually, I became aware of another shooting and stabbing in Vancouver. Of course, there are a lot of other things going on, even in Coquitlam or Port Moody or wherever you live, and even a small town, suburban town. There are other things going on, fights, other vandalism, domestic abuse, all kinds of things. What's that?
Is it okay if I interject for a second there?
Please.
I think that, yes, there are other issues that happen and stuff like that, but the occurrence of them isn't quite as high as the media would like them to be. I mean, as you were saying, there were shooting and stuff happening in Vancouver. That's great. That's Vancouver. I'm in Coquitlam. Prior to actually getting into the incident, as I was driving home, I was doing my regular, watch out for police. Don't want to be speeding or get caught with that. And that's not one, but two separate cruisers sitting on the side of the road, possibly doing a follow-up from a previous ticket, or sitting there eating their donut. I'm not sure what they were doing, but I saw them hanging around, and they weren't doing anything, and it still took them that long to respond to the situation or someone being assaulted. I think that's really unacceptable.
Well, I know, for example, that in the situation of Port Coquitlam, where a citizen called into the police while witnessing a fight occurring, he was on the phone live as he witnessed the fight, and called them, and the police actually never showed up for that incident. And in fact, he had to call them 20 minutes later, and the fight was over, and they said, "Oh, should we send an ambulance?" And he felt that that wasn't acceptable. But I know when talking to the police before, they gave me the same kind of things. It's a Friday night, it's busy, there are other things going on elsewhere. If I have on the one hand a minor incident, it's pretty easy to decide where we're going to go.
And yes, I'd give them sympathy for that if the only part of satisfaction that I got from the entire incident was the fact that the police officer himself said the story that the way they had handled it was actually, quote, word for word, a botched job.
Right, so they admitted to you then that they had kind of screwed up your situation.
Yeah, by saying, "Oh, we didn't even know that you were involved in the situation." And it was like, well, how did you not know? I called in, said I was assaulted, said I was in my car, and I was in the area. They told me to go home.
Now, what do you think about this? Do you think what happened to you is an isolated incident, or do you think it was just your turn and it happens all the time?
I don't think it was my turn, to be honest. Because I've heard of situations like you were talking about before where, well, yeah, sure, there are priority calls, but then what do you do about situations like the lady who had the break-in while she was at her house in Vancouver, and the police didn't show up for not one, but 2 whole days? Like, how do you explain that? There were 2 full days of nothing but pure crime activity that they couldn't send one cruiser over. They couldn't pull one police officer off of the highway and bring them right to that guy's house. I mean, honestly, she waited out on her porch for days and fell asleep in her kitchen out of pure exhaustion. Not because she was tired, but because pure exhaustion of trying to stay up and wait for these police officers.
So then, would you say then there's a general lack of respect now that you have for the police?
I wouldn't even call it a lack of respect. I'd just say a lack of acknowledgement. I don't really even see them as police officers anymore. Because the only time I've ever really had to deal with them is when I get a speeding ticket. And even then, I'm not necessarily speeding or endangering lives. And I could easily pick out many other people on the road that's like, sure, yeah, I may be speeding, but that person's not using a turn signal and just about caused an accident. It seems that the police's their only concern as of recently is speeding, like school zones. They're going to step up enforcement for that. Highway speeding, step up enforcement for that. We're going to have more cops on the highways because the long weekend's coming up. Step up enforcement for speeding. There doesn't seem to be much done for actual crime prevention.
Right. So, I mean, in talking to your friends and family and associates about what happened, did you hear similar stories from other people that you spoke with? Is there you think, a growing trend where these kind of personalized, smaller incidents are overlooked?
Most of the people I talked to hadn't really had any similar incidents as mine, but some people did say, you know, there's actually, I got this quite a lot from a lot of my friends, is, you know, there's no point even calling anymore because most of the time they don't show up unless you've been shot.
Right.
There's no point in really calling because, you know, hey, you're alive, you're not fully hurt, physically at least. You might be emotionally traumatized, but they don't really care about that.
Right. Now, it's starting to sound like you're not going to go ahead and go anywhere with the case.
No, I'm not, because there's no point. There's no way in hell I'd be able to pick a guy out of a lineup, or if he was standing right in front of me saying, hey, I was the guy doing it, I couldn't for sure say, yeah, that was the guy, because the image is completely left my mind. I even said to the officer that, I believe in psychology, I learned this, that it's about a 10% failure and recall per day after an incident, such as the one that I was in, and in 7 days from when it happened, assuming I had a 100% recall of what he actually looked like, I was already down to a 30% chance. Then divide that by the 60 pictures he would have given me, that puts it down to less than a 2% chance of actually picking the person.
Right, at that point it becomes more like winning the lottery than it does catching a criminal.
It goes back to what he said, let's play a game.
Right. So then you are pretty convinced that you're done with that, you're not going to follow it up at all, you're not going to try and even press charge against this person, and as far as you're concerned, your case file is closed on the matter.
The officer told me that the person that I described and that he thinks it might have been might be up on other charges for something else. They don't have a picture in the book, but he told me that he might be wanted on other issues, and that he'd be contacting me to let me know how that went. And I honestly don't think he'll contact me. I actually asked for his number and said, hey, well, how about you give me a shout in a week? And it's now been 2 weeks. Give me a call. I'm not going to call because I honestly just don't care.
Now, I know that after the incident, you were angry about it, and this was closer to the incident itself when we did our initial interview. You told me that you thought, actually, that it would have been more effective and likely a better chance of justice being served if you just gone and grabbed a baseball bat and gone out and found the guy yourself.
Actually, I even said that to the officer. Because when I was doing my closing statement, he asked me, is there anything else you'd like to add? I said, yeah, I mean, I might as well carry a bat around with me because the only way justice will be served. I mean, it's not like I was going to go out and I'm not a violent person. I wouldn't do something like that. But in all honesty, it seems the only way that anything would ever happen. Sorry, I have to feel you're unconscious, so the police will actually did something wrong. Sorry, it's just with trouble.
Yeah, I mean, that's a sentiment we've heard too before. I mean, the gentleman who witnessed the fight in Poco, he thought himself about going over there and trying to break up the fight, but he was vastly outnumbered 40-1, and that just didn't make any sense. But it was likely the best shot that kid had, because the police weren't coming.
Yeah, exactly, and I wouldn't have gone up against 16 other teenagers who could either be high on what's known drugs or like drunkards and I don't know. I guess today's not even going to go into that.
Yeah, it definitely seems like the only way things get done is if people take it upon themselves to get it done, which I'm pretty sure is not the idea of the police around. That's not what things are supposed to be.
I guess that if vigilantes were around, the police wouldn't have much of a job, but you know what? They don't seem to have much of a job right now anyways. So I guess vigilantism is the only way that we'll ever truly get solved if someone finds himself in dire need.